She said, sleep on the couch, didn't expect the house to be gone when. Then the final story will be started. I, 34 male, am a structural engineer. I spent the last 5 years of my life obsessed with a single project, my home. I didn't just buy a house. I designed and built a custom modern minimalist masterpiece on a cliffside lot in Washington State. I used every cent of a massive inheritance from my grandfather to fund it. Because the money was a direct inheritance and kept in a separate, non-commingled account, the property was legally mine alone. This is an important detail for later. I married my wife 30F 3 years ago. At the time, she seemed to respect my drive. But shortly after the wedding, the entitlement started to seep in like a slow leak. It reached a boiling point when she insisted her brother, 27M, and mother, 58F, move in temporarily. Her brother is a serial entrepreneur, which is just a fancy way of saying he's a professional parasite who refuses to get a real job. Her mother is the one who fed my wife the idea that my hard work was actually our lucky break. For 6 months, I lived with people who treated my home like a free hotel. They didn't pay a dime. They didn't clean. They just consumed. The tension finally snapped last Tuesday. I came home after a brutal 12-hour shift to find her brother's muddy mountain bike leaning against my custom white oak cabinets. These aren't IKEA cabinets. They're hand-finished architectural-grade wood. I moved the bike to the garage. 10 minutes later, the brother dragged it back into the kitchen, claiming it was too cold for the bike's tires outside. I told him flat out, put it back in the garage or it's going in the trash. My wife stepped in, looking at me with pure disgust. Don't talk to him like that. He's family. You're being incredibly controlling and toxic. Honestly, I can't even stand to be in the same room as you right now. Go sleep on the couch. I don't want you in our bedroom until you learn how to share the space. I looked at her, then at her brother, who was smirking, and then at her mother, who was nodding in approval. They really thought they had won. Share. I asked. I pay for every bit of electricity you're using to glare at me. He hasn't contributed a cent to this household. It's our house, she snapped. Community property. Look it up. Now get on the couch. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just grabbed my laptop and my go bag from the hall. I told them, fine, I'll sleep on the couch, but you won't like how this ends. I didn't go to the couch. I drove to a motel and called my lawyer. See, my wife was leaning hard on that community property line, but she clearly didn't know the law. In Washington, under RCW 26.16.010, property acquired by inheritance is separate property. I had never put her name on the deed, and I had never used marital funds for construction. Even better, the house wasn't technically finished. I was living there under a temporary certificate of occupancy, TCO. A few weeks prior, I discovered a significant geological issue, soil subsidence on a cliffside that required a massive, expensive piling system to fix. As the engineer of record, I knew the house was technically unsafe for permanent habitation until those repairs were made. The next morning, while my wife and her family were out for a celebratory brunch on my dime, I went to work. I called the county building department and reported a structural emergency on my own property. I pulled permits for an immediate corrective deconstruction to mitigate the landslide risk. By noon, I had a demolition and salvage crew on site. We weren't just smashing things, we were reclaiming materials. Since the house was separate property and currently deemed a safety hazard, I had every right to dismantle it to protect the land. I was standing in the driveway when their SUV pulled in. The screech of the brakes was music to my ears. My wife jumped out, followed by her mother, who was already filming me with her phone, screaming about illegal destruction. Her brother looked like his world had ended because his expensive gaming rig was sitting in a crate on the gravel. "What are you doing?" my wife screamed. "Stop this. You're destroying our home." I held up my clipboard. "I'm sleeping on the couch, remember?" Well, I realized the couch was sitting on an unstable floor joist. The whole north wing is structurally compromised. I'm performing emergency repairs. "You're lying," her mother shrieked. "This is community property. We're calling the police." "Go ahead," I said. "This land was bought with inherited funds. It's separate property. The house was built with separate funds. I have the tracing documents and the prenup. And as of 2 hours ago, the county revoked the TCO. This is now a hazardous construction site. You're actually trespassing." Her brother tried to puff out his chest. "We live here. We have tenant rights." "You're guests," I said. "And since the building is officially unsafe, your tenancy is over." For your own safety, the sergeant over there is going to help you move your things to the street." The police arrived, and it went exactly how I expected. I handed the officer my engineering license, the deed, the prenup, and the county-stamped emergency permits. The officer looked at my wife and asked if her name was on the deed. When she said no, he told her it was a civil matter, but confirmed she had to leave because the site was literally flagged as a danger zone. My wife started sobbing. "You're destroying this house just to get back at me? Over a bike?" "No," I said. "I'm dismantling a house for a woman who thought she could kick me out of my own creation. You told me I wasn't welcome in my own room. So I took the room. I took the walls. I even took the couch." But the best part was yet to come. During the divorce proceedings, her lawyer tried to claim waste of assets. They wanted the full $4 million value of the house. My lawyer sat them down and dropped a bomb. I had been tracking the household accounts. While I was paying for everything, my wife had been funneling over $150,000 to her brother's business ventures without my knowledge. In legal terms, that's dissipation of marital assets. "We're not destroying the asset," my lawyer explained. "Every fixture, every slab of marble, and every beam is in a climate-controlled warehouse. It's all inventoried. Since the materials were separate property, they remain separate property. However, the $150,000 your client stole from the joint account will be taking that out of her share of the remaining marital property." I didn't rebuild. I sold the cliffside lot to a developer for a massive profit. Since the land was separate property, I kept every cent. The house is currently sitting in crates, and I'm planning to rebuild it on a much more stable piece of land in a different state. As for my wife and her family, they had to move into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment. Her brother finally had to get a job at a warehouse. Ironically, probably moving crates similar to the ones my house is stored in. Her mother still sends me nasty emails, but I've set up a filter so they go straight to trash. The last time I saw my ex-wife, she asked how I could be so cold. I told her that a house is only as strong as its foundation. If the foundation is built on entitlement and lies, the whole thing has to come down. If you ever find yourself being told to sleep on the couch in a house you built with your own hands, just remember, you don't have to stay on the couch if you own the floor it's sitting on. Subscribe for more tips on how to renovate your life. Demolition is sometimes the best first step